The most asked question in the business: who's the greatest to ever do it? For some, it's a redundant question with a very easy answer. Stone Cold, Undertaker, The Rock, Hogan, but others will bring up the name of John Cena. And I know for some people that has their blood boiling. They're about to pop a blood vessel that I just put John Cena into the GOAT conversation. A man with a 20-year legacy to his name, accolades upon accolades, and a body of work that very few can match. But is he actually the greatest of all time in the WWE? Well, let me make the case for him. First, we gotta see what makes a GOAT in the WWE because there's no definition for it. For me, I break it down like this. Longevity. How long did they do it for and were they reliable? Achievements. What did they win and how much did they win? Mainstream impact. Were they able to take their popularity and translate it over to the casual consumer? Legacy. What are they going to be remembered for? Wrestling skills. Could they actually go in the ring? Character work. Were they able to reinvent things, keep things fresh so that fans would keep caring? And lastly, their body of work in and outside of the industry. Let's first look at longevity in the WWE. Injuries, unforeseen circumstances, the toll of the road schedule, and so much more can make it hard to have a long career. But John Cena from 2005 to 2016 remained a consistent on WWE TV. And not just that, he remained the top guy in the company. Racked up so many miles on the odometer, but he was always at every pay-per-view, every live event, and always on Raw and SmackDown. When he did get injured, he was able to beat out the estimated timetable and return in record time. A torn pectoral in 2007, diagnosis showed a year away, came back in 6 months. Herniated disc in 2008, injured in August, came back in November for Survivor Series. 2012, bone chips in his elbow, left in August, he was back by November. So even when he's been injured, he's returned to a full-time schedule and it hasn't hindered him one bit. But how does he stack up against others who can lay claim to the GOAT when it comes to how long they did it for? The Rock, 7 years at the top. Stone Cold, the same. Hogan, 10 years at the pinnacle of WWE from 1983 to 1993. Undertaker, he did it for 30, but the back half was part-time, so you crunch that down and it's 20 years up until 2011. For Cena, he was consistently at the top for 11 years. No breaks, no more than 6 months missed at a time. 11 years, every house show, every media appearance, he went wherever they asked him, and he was the premier face of WWE. Throughout those near 15 years, his durability was honestly insane. When others were around the same point in their career and they started to regress, Cena continued to soldier on. He ranks in the top 5 with the most matches all time, 2,199 televised matches all time, and he's won 1,743 of those matches. Think about it like this: for 11 years, Cena was the MVP of WWE most years. On a yearly basis, when you look at a timeline and you look at John Cena's years, he never had a bad year. When it comes to longevity, I think John Cena easily passes in that category. But how much did he do in the mainstream during that time? Getting eyeballs on your product is just as important as being the top guy. Well, he did a lot. He didn't just show up to WWE, hit a couple fake punches, take his jorts and go home. He, by his own merits, decided that he was gonna do more for the business, more for the kids, for WWE's identity, and help it flourish in the new age of social media. The best way I can put this is John Cena is the greatest pure brand ambassador that WWE will ever see. His work with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, having granted 650 plus wishes, his dedication to the troops, his ability to juggle different mediums and still compete in the ring, it's honestly insane. His charitable work is something that you just can't poke holes into. Even now, when he's not a full-time WWE performer, he continues to make memorable moments which people will never forget. I remember at one point, people used to call him a phony for wanting to help people. They thought this was all part of the act, but it's not. This dude genuinely wants to do it, and it shows. No offense to the WWE of today, but when you look at them from a charitable standpoint, it's not the same as when Cena was full-time. Like every single Raw, you'd see some record-breaking graphics, something to do with Be a Star, anti-bullying, whatever it was, and it was all thanks to John Cena and how far he took it. An indispensable source of goodwill and gratitude towards others, he was the most important figure in the burgeoning internet era. He leveraged his position for good, and when others would have just done things to meet expectations, he did things to exceed them. One of the absolute best role models that any child or parent could want. A message which has helped people seeing their final days have a glimmer of hope. The word megastar. Everyone uses that word on everyone in the wrestling community, but megastars are people who you can associate the face with the name upon one mention. No further explanation is needed. If you need to give someone a backstory as to who someone is, chances are they aren't a megastar. Basically, go anywhere in the world, say the name John Cena, and people who don't watch wrestling will associate the name to a distinct sound, meme, or company. John Cena's presence in meme culture, his breakthrough into the entertainment business with Peacemaker and his movies, and his long-term presence in the WWE have all contributed to him arguably becoming the most well-known wrestler of all time. And that's so important in the sense that if people have you linked back to something, in this case the WWE, you've done that brand a huge service. Wherever you go, that brand will follow. John Cena also didn't start doing this now. He was making mainstream waves as early as 2004 with his play on hip-hop culture and fashion. In 2005, he dropped You Can't See Me, his hip-hop album which sold 143,000 in its first week and it went platinum. Something that's not easy to do. It debuted at number 15 on the Billboard charts, an undeniably catchy and well put together album which showed Cena's proficiency in rapping meshed with his incoming fame, and it was all upwards from there. While being a full-time competitor in the WWE, he hosted the ESPYs, Kids' Choice, he was on Disney Channel shows, he was in movies, commercials, TV cameos. He globalized the company in markets like India and China, and a lot of that had to do with how marketable a star he was. When you plastered this face onto something, it sold because of the person behind it, because of just how much John Cena resonated with the kids. The more corporate side of WWE took John Cena and they just ran with him as far as they could. He was and is a merch selling machine, even to this day. I was looking for stats to kind of compare Hogan and Cena or Austin and Cena when it comes to merch shipping, but I couldn't find anything too reliable or too concrete. But I think it's pretty common knowledge just how marketable he will always be. Also with him, WWE was able to move manias from arenas back to large stadiums. The allure with the kids, it's honestly hard to describe. They all just gravitate towards him. Doesn't matter which era it was, people will always love John Cena. And to the people who say, yeah, we turned off because of John Cena, it feels like more kids stayed than adults left, if that makes sense. With that, he was also able to take Tony Yayo's move and cement the You Can't See Me as his own, which has become a pop culture icon of its own. So when you look at mainstream impact, Cena has everyone beat. Only person who can rival him is The Rock. But in terms of charitable work, Rock isn't close to Cena at all. He transitioned to Hollywood 7 years into his run. Cena did it 15 years after his run, and he also did it on the side in years 4, 5, 6, and onwards. Simply put, when you think of WWE, you think of John Cena. There was no reason for WWE to stay in the mainstream as long as they did after the departures of The Rock and Stone Cold, but Cena just brought something new, and as the company turned to a new era, it worked. He's the most charitable wrestler ever, so again, he passes with flying colors. Alright, at the core of everything, it's called pro wrestling, and for Cena, even the biggest of his fans can't admit that wrestling was his strong suit. I'd flat out be lying if I said that. For the most part, Cena had a formulaic approach. Take a beating, Hulk up, hit the 5 moves of doom, attitude adjustment, you're dead, game over. As time wore on and in his later years, his catalog of matches did get better, especially in the US Open Challenge. Also, he fought guys like Styles, Bryan, and Punk, so that helped a ton. While I do agree that he had a formulaic approach, there's also a narrative around that just isn't true. There's evidence that suggests that even before the late career resurgence, he's put on some great matches. Punk vs Cena, JBL at Judgment Day, HBK on Raw, Umaga at the Rumble, the Backlash Fatal 4-Way, Edge at Unforgiven. He's beaten a who's who in this industry. The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Brock Lesnar, Edge, Randy Orton, Kurt Angle, Batista, Chris Jericho. The list goes on and on. I mean, realistically, out of the top guys that WWE have had, who out of those guys has been a work rate master? It's always been the characters or a tangible trait that's drawn. We also gotta address the elephant in the room and what people refer to as Super Cena, a time period between 2005 and 2016 where Cena apparently didn't let anyone win. And there is some truth to that, most notoriously Bray Wyatt and the Nexus. I honestly can't say anything to excuse that because those were in fact his calls, but he has put over more people than he's put down. He's put over Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, Finn Balor, CM Punk, and so many others. He's shown that if he believes it's right for the company, he'll take a step back and let someone else do well. But aside from fighting, how well has he reinvented the character? When you look at reinventions and adaptability in the wrestling business, names like Undertaker, Chris Jericho, and Kane come to mind. Guys who made various adaptations to their character, but for Cena, he kept things relatively the same post 2008. And honestly, why change something when it's not broken? We had rookie Cena, nothing to really write home about there. The guy almost got fired. Thugonomics Cena when he got his big break and he really started to connect with the audience, just making everyone laugh, and we were all waiting to see what he would say next. Chain Gang Cena where he really took that next step and made WWE his company. PG Cena where Cena was the same copy-paste formula for 8 years, and then Veteran Cena where he stopped pretending to be the underdog and catered to the fact that, yeah, I am the best and come try to beat me. Out of all those different versions, many see the early years as a big feather in Cena's cap. He was doing something different, it was organic, and it wasn't forced. Slowly, as he became more corporate and the company started to lean into a new direction, his character suffered. So on that end, he doesn't really have a strong case. He didn't really adopt the character much. We never saw heel Cena. Their target audience was kids, and for them, it worked. It helped them ship merch, it helped them get money. So I guess the superhero character wasn't as bad as we make it out to be. Cena wasn't for the adults, he wasn't really for the hardcores either, he was for the casuals. The reason as to why WWE have all these sponsorships, all these contracts, all this good faith today is because of what John Cena did post 2007. His help in putting WWE in the good graces is something people don't understand just yet. For those 10 years where he didn't change, he changed lives and he helped change the WWE. Despite that, when Cena talked on the mic, you listened. He commanded the audience even when he was a superhero. His Chain Gang and Doctor of Thugonomics days, honestly, go back and watch those and you can't tell me this man is not one of the greatest of all time on the mic. For achievements, I didn't really know how heavy to weigh these. The achievements go without saying: 16-time world champion, and that's true WWE World Championships, 5-time WrestleMania main eventer, Money in the Bank, 2-time Royal Rumble winner, 5-time US champion. The only title that's really eluded him is the IC Championship, but honestly, if he doesn't win that, I don't think that's really gonna hurt his legacy. But when it comes to accomplishments, who can hold a candle to Cena's? Well, that's one of his longtime rivals, Edge. 12-time World Tag Team Champion, 11-time World Champion, 5-time IC Champion, 2-time WWE Tag Team Champion, US Champion, 2 Rumbles, a Money in the Bank win, and 2 WrestleMania main events. Which one would you rather take? I'll leave that up to you. Another person we gotta look at is Randy Orton. 14-time World Champion, Money in the Bank, 2-time Rumble winner, US and IC Champion, Tag Team Champion, and a 2-time WrestleMania main eventer. Again, which career would you rather take? And lastly, the man who is always compared to, Ric Flair. 14-time WCW World Champion, 2-time WWE Champion, 3-time WCW Tag Team Champion, 5-time US Champion, and a 1-time Intercontinental Champion. Cena's achievements match up and beat most, and a lot of these people have been doing it for longer. So when it comes to achievements, there's another pass. Lastly, we gotta look at his impact and legacy. A lot of people are always on the side of Cena having done irreversible damage to wrestling. I've made enough YouTube videos where I've seen it, people just don't like the guy. There's a certain portion of the audience that no matter what you tell them, you just can't convince them. Aside from him being a superhero, what is his legacy though? His legacy is a guy who, when people thought he was bullshitting and he was a phony, he held true to his word and he never wavered. His contributions to charity, his work in the media, and his undying support to proudly say that, yeah, I'm from the WWE and here's why I love it, is unmatched. So many guys, when they're done with wrestling, they don't want to talk about it anymore. But with Cena, wherever he goes, he proudly waves the WWE flag high. He He's one of the biggest draws and merchandise movers of all time. A guy who wasn't supposed to be much, organically won over the fans with his charisma, and then he made a shift to a character which was all about the kids. When tragedy struck the WWE, he was the guy who they re-baselined their company off of. And I know what you guys are saying, he brought down ratings, he did this and that. I don't think it was about ratings for them anymore. After 2007, and honestly just how much the company was getting torched, they needed a way to re-baseline their company, rebuild, and get into the good graces of people again. People were saying no to wrestling, and that no became a yes because of John Cena. That ratings dip was inevitable. It was going to be coming at some point or another. Did Cena help? Probably. If they don't make that move, if they don't decide that now's the time to change, I don't know where WWE is today. Plus, Cena himself said that he saw the audience change, so he had to adapt the character. Now, also one thing you're starting to see is as this younger generation comes into the WWE, guys like Carmelo Hayes and Theory, they talk about the huge impact that John Cena has had on them, how much they've modeled their game after this guy, because people who grew up watching this guy, slowly the appreciation is getting more and more, and you can tell just how much this man truly meant to different time periods. Ruthless Aggression, PG era, and even the people of today. John Cena is a 1 out of 1. It'll never be seen again. For as much as people ragged on the guy, I think the true value of his work is finally being seen. Simply, he was the franchise. He didn't just work for the WWE, he lived for the WWE, and his legacy is unmatched. He's not The Rock, he's not Hogan, he's not Austin, he's not Ric Flair or Shawn Michaels. He's John Cena, the franchise, WWE's most valuable charitable icon of all time. And he's not a guy who's ruined his legacy in retrospect. So many guys have had all these controversies attached to them, and in following years, it's really ruined their standing. If anything, Cena's legend has grown. Cena to his name has a portfolio of timeless moments, moments that won't be replicated, matches that are some of the industry's biggest, returns unlike any other, rivalries that will stand the test of time, and most importantly, an unwavering work ethic, and I can't hammer that point home enough, just how much this dude worked for the company. It's all around proficiency, from in the ring to on the mic and in elevators where he's meeting people. He's genuinely just changing lives. John Cena was and is an industry leader when it comes to how to handle yourself and your brand. Year in, year out, he worked diligently and he didn't rely on what he had already made. He strived to be better. He received criticism for his wrestling ability not being the strongest, something he addressed in his later years where he would add more moves and he changed up the pacing and overall flow of his matches. To transcend means to go beyond the range of limits, and Cena did that. He has passed wrestling for how big a star he truly is. He did so much while he was still in wrestling. There's people today who just can't handle both. There's a huge difference between being a top star for the company and being a global icon. Cena was and is a global icon. He added his name to the big four with Hogan, Rock, and Austin of stars who broke through and remained relevant for a long time. There's no aspect of professional wrestling where John Cena fails to meet the criteria for greatest of all time. I think without a doubt, at worst, he's a top 5 all time. The longevity has been matched by very few, his accomplishments go beyond the ring, and the sheer amount of mainstream coverage he brought the WWE is something that no one has been able to do since. That being said, is he the greatest of all time? I believe so. I think that how long his run was compared to others because of how he basically saved a company from disaster, because of how he was able to cross over into the mainstream at such an early age and continue to help WWE grow its reach in a new way. For that reason, he's the GOAT. Think about it, who could go from rapping about controversial issues in one era to a complete 180 and a squeaky clean character the next? It's true star power, and this dude is genuinely a good guy. It shows he doesn't have to do this, but he does. Business is booming when Cena is back. The body of work is unmatched, and I mean from both an in and out of ring standpoint. Nobody has done as much as Cena has. That being said, is he the definitive GOAT or even the majority GOAT? If I were to go around and ask wrestling fans, the answer to that question is probably not. You probably wouldn't get a majority because it's all subjective. Also, Cena, when it comes to his WWE body of work, is matched by The Undertaker. If he was sitting up there alone, then I could confidently say yes, but I can't. Also, as a Cena fan, I can't with a good conscience say that Cena at his peak was better than Austin, Hogan, and Rock at theirs, because let's face it, that's just not true. Those stars have a lot of different factors which made them bigger, but Cena, with the product not what it once was able to rebuild it with a new vision. The heart he did and continues to do it with is unmatched. As he spends more time in Hollywood, the heart grows fonder. Time passes, the legacy gets stronger, and his name grows in the eyes of non-WWE fans. It's all subjective, there is no true GOAT, but Cena's case is very, very strong. If you can't like the dude, you gotta at least respect what he's done. But I believe for his tenure, for his work in the community, and really helping WWE make yet another big expansion, John Cena is the GOAT, in my opinion, and keep that in mind, in my opinion. But I want to hear yours. I've made the case, that's what this was supposed to be, making the case for John Cena being the GOAT. Do you agree? Put it in the comments. Do you disagree? Put it in the comments. I want to hear both sides. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Lots more coming soon. And until next time, take care. Peace.